Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to look at three things as we build this composition. First, we're going to be looking at track mat and what a track mat does and how it can be useful. Then second, we're going to look at one of the ways that we can group layers, which is called pre-composing. There's about three different ways that you can group layers, but one of them is pre-compose. And then also we're going to start looking at how to build a little perspective into or a little depth into the composition by using blur. All right, so let's get started with this. First thing we want to do is start a new composition. So go to Composition, New Composition, 1280 by 720, 24 frames, 10 seconds will work for this right now. And we're going to need to import some assets. So we're going to double click in here. One is a PSD, and then the other three are video layers or videos that we want to look at. So let's select those four and hit open. And now we have those in our composition, or I'm sorry, in our project panel. First thing we want to do is we want to build our track mat. And I'll begin to explain what a track mat is. Think of a cookie cutter when you're working in the, not that I work in the kitchen a lot, but you're baking, you know, somebody's baking cookies and they have a cookie cutter, they roll the dough out, and they use the metal cookie cutter to cut the shape of the cookie out. That's what our track mat is. It is the shape that we want another layer to be cut out. So to demonstrate this cookie cutter idea, I'm going to first grab this star tool here and select it and then come down and draw my star here. And I need to make some adjustments to this star real quick. I'm going to go into Polystar, go into the path. I'm going to need to crank up my inner radius here just to give my star some shape there. And now I've got my star, and one other thing I need to do real quick is I need to give it a fill, because this is what the we could work with the outline, but it would not show up as well. So we want to add a solid to that. Any color is going to work fine, and then just for the sake of doing this, we're going to get rid of the stroke. The stroke would show up also, but for right now, let's just go with this shape. All right, so there's our cookie cutter. That's what we want our next layer to kind of take the shape of. And you may be saying, well, I can just build a shape that way. But what if I want this footage right here to take on, not necessarily take on, but at least be cut into this shape right here? That's where your track mat comes in. Now this isn't a real good example because this star is just not going to envelop a lot of this background footage, but we can still use it. And the way we apply the track mat is the bottom layer is the footage, and again the top layer is our shape, our cookie cutter there, and we're going to go right here. And you'll see that we have mode and then we have track mat here. Now if you do not have those, come right down here to where it says toggle switches and modes and click that. So there's all of our switches. If that's what you have right now, come down here to the bottom, click on that, toggle switches and modes, and there is our modes and there's our track mat. So bottom layer, video footage, click right here where it says none. And we're going to use the alpha mat of shape layer 1. So we're going to use the alpha information of shape layer 1. And this is pretty simple. So now you see that we have our cookie cutter. The star is being cut into the video layer. All right. So that is using the track mat, and what the track mat is doing, or the shape is doing, is cutting out all of the footage out here where there's no information, or that's our alpha channel, and it is showing us everything of the video footage that is filled with the solid. So that's how a track mat works, and we can move this star around if we want to. Let me just go to the position of this, and you can see how the footage does not move, but the star does. So if we were wanting to highlight a portion of the video, we could do something like that, but I know that person's not going to stay in that position. It's going to move all around. But you can see how this track mat can be helpful. All right. Now that's not the part of the comp that I want to build, so we're going to delete all of that and start over. The idea that I want to work on today is kind of a video panel, a set of 3 video panels. So I want to get the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to start up here in the upper left-hand corner and just kind of drag down so that it's kind of proportionate to the composition that we're working in. And then I'm going to go in and make sure that this rectangle is centered up. So I'm going to go into rectangle 1, go to transform rectangle 1, and zero out my position there to make sure that it is centered in my comp. All right, got that done, and that rectangle is pretty much ready to go. I'm going to drag in another piece of footage, drag that volleyball footage in. And you can see here that the volleyball footage is much larger than the rectangle. And there's 2 things that I'm going to do. First, I want to go back to that shape layer, and I want to round these edges again, just so that we get an idea that we're actually cutting this shape out. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to go into rectangle path 1, and the roundness right here, we're going to scrub that up. And around 100, 110, somewhere around there. Just around these edges here so that they're not the sharp, hard edges there, but we're rounded. It's going to give it a little bit of a different look. All right, so we need to scale down the volleyball footage because the volleyball footage is actually 1080 footage, and our composition is 720. So we're going to scale that down, and then we're going to get it close to fitting in so that we can see as much of the footage as possible. We're going to try to get it as close as we can to the shape. Now, we don't want it inside of the shape like that. It's not going to work, but we want it to just be outside of the shape, get as much of it to show up. And now we're ready to apply the track mat. And again, the track mat's going to be this shape layer. And we do that by going to track mat right here, go to the word none, and we can use the alpha mat shape layer 1. And there we have it. So we now have our volleyball footage using or applying the track mat of shape layer 1 to it. And you can see now we have a nice stylized video panel here. Now, this is just the beginning of it. This works. Looks nice, but what I want to do here is I want to add an edge to this just to make it pop out a little bit more, because we're going to put in a background here in just a few minutes, and we want this footage to kind of stand out a little bit, have some definition to it. The way I'm going to do this is we already have this shape here. We already have a path here, so we're just going to duplicate this shape layer and make some changes to it. Now, right now, if you'll notice, the visibility is shut off. And when we applied that layer to the track mat of the volleyball footage, After Effects went ahead and shut off the visibility. Now, we can turn the visibility on, and you don't see the video footage any longer. And so that is not what we want, and that is the way After Effects handles this. It shuts off that visibility, and it shows you right here, this icon says that this is a track mat to the layer below it. And but we're going to duplicate this so that we can build our edge here. So select Shape Layer 1 and select Command D. And you'll notice now that it no longer has the icon for the track mat, because it is the shape layer 2 is not the track mat, but the visibility is still off. So we can turn that on, and of course we have a fill in the shape layer, so it is covering the footage, but we can fix that. All we want to do now is select shape layer 2, come up here to the word fill, and let's select none. And so now we have our visibility back of the video image. And the next thing we need to do is apply a stroke to this shape layer 2. So again, make sure it's selected. Click on the word stroke, and we can do a solid color right there. And my settings are already set for a white color. If you want to choose a different color, you can. But I'm going to go with this white color right here. And then I've got about an 11 pixel width on this stroke here. So now you can see that we are building our look here. So we've created this video display here, and we have 3 separate layers creating this look. There's 3 ways we can group these 3 layers together to keep them together, because right now if I was to animate this volleyball layer, you'll see that, okay, it moves, but the other 2 layers do not move. Now we want to keep these 3 layers together, and so that I don't have to separately animate all 3 layers, there's 3 ways we can group this. And the one that we're going to focus on right now, I think is the best way for this situation, because what it will do is it's going to group all 3 of these layers into a new composition and keep that composition as one layer right here in the composition we're working in. So to do that, what we need to do is select the 3 layers, and this is what we call pre-compose, and we're going to right click or control click on any one of those 3 layers, and then you're going to see the word pre-compose. We're going to select that, and now it gives us this option here. And let's make sure we title this, because in a few minutes we're going to be adding 2 more of these, and we want to be able to differentiate between them. Let's go ahead and call this volleyball pre-comp, and we'll stay with move all attributes and not worry about these others, and hit OK. And immediately you see what happens. Those 3 layers have now been dropped into a new composition. That composition is right there in our project panel, and it's right here in this layer, as shows up as this layer right here. So those 3 layers that we had making up this video display are now wrapped up in this volleyball pre-comp. We can still get to those 3 layers and work with them if we need to. The idea here is that yes, you can drag a composition into a composition. So if I have another composition, like I do have this slate composition up here that I started with, I can drag that composition into this composition, and you see that the text shows up. So a comp can be nested within a comp, and that's one way of grouping. But the way we grouped it was through the pre-comp and made this into a composition in our existing timeline. All right. Now this composition, we can animate this composition, and it moves all 3 pieces together. Okay. And so any of the 5 basic properties here can be animated, and it has all 3 layers tied together. Now if we want to still get to those 3 layers and do something separately with them, all we have to do is double click on the volleyball pre-comp. It opens up that new, or that pre-comp right here, and it shows you the 3 layers. So here's our comp 1, the one that this is going to be our final composition with our volleyball pre-comp in it. And then here's the volleyball pre-comp with the 3 layers in it. So if I need to come back in here and adjust these, do any type of work to them, maybe change out this footage, I can do that. Also, I can add to this composition, and we'll do that real quick to demonstrate this. Let's set our timeline indicator back at the beginning, and let's just add some text. Now make sure that you are in the volleyball pre-comp, and let's just add some text in here, and we'll just call this volleyball. I'm going to get my selection tool so I can move this around. I'm going to drag it down here to the bottom, and what we'll do to demonstrate this is we're going to animate this text over this 10 seconds to just move across down here at the bottom. So we'll set our first keyframe. Need to get position, hit P on the keyboard for position, click your stopwatch and drag to the other end of the timeline, and then let's scrub this across over here to the other side, and now we've animated the text volleyball, and done that in the volleyball pre-comp. And now when we jump back over to our composition where that volleyball pre-comp is nested, we can see that that change has been made and that the animation is there. So now all three layers, along with the word volleyball, all four of those are now nested right here in this comp. So this is a very powerful tool to keep a number of layers together and even do more animation. So now if I want to, like I demonstrated just a minute ago, I can animate the position of this along with the animation that's already in it. So this is pre-composing. This is grouping those four layers into this composition and having this composition inside of our main composition. All right. The next thing that I want to look at real quick is I'm going to shut the visibility off for this layer. Because right now, the way I want to build this composition is I want a background, because right now we have no background. We just have a black background back there, and I want to add a background to this and start adding some depth to it. So to see that, I want to shut off the visibility for this pre-comp. And we're going to go up here and we're going to get the flame on red metal background.psd, and we're going to drop it down in here. This is going to be our background. And you can see that this is much larger than it needs to be. It's 1280 by 720. Actually, it's larger than that. 1920 by something. Anyway, it is larger than our composition. So we're going to hit S for scale. We're going to scale this down to get it to fit. All right, so we need to drop it down to about 59%, and it fits in there nicely. So we have our background. And I can drop, we can turn the visibility back on. And the way this looks, there's a little bit of depth perspective in there. But it still pretty much looks like our video display is sitting on top of this background. So one simple trick, very simple trick. And I'm going to move our volleyball pre-comp off to the side just a little bit to give us some more idea of how this looks. I'm just going to select the background layer, and then we're going to go up to Effect and go to Blur. And let's just drop the Gaussian blur on for right now. It's a simple, very fast rendering blur, but it will blur this background. And let's crank that blurriness up probably to about 20 to 25%, somewhere in there. And what that does is that then begins to give us what would appear to be some depth of field, where our forefront image here is sharp and in focus, and then our background image is out of focus, giving it some depth perception there. And so this is just a simple trick to bring a little bit of style, a little bit of depth into the composition. The next thing that I want to do is I want to animate this volleyball pre-comp, and then we're going to add two more in there with different sports footage in it. So to do that, let me go to P for position, and I actually want this to come on from the other side. Here's another keyboard shortcut. I have position down here selected. I want to add scale also because I'm going to animate position and scale. If I hold down the shift key and then type in the next property that I want, S for scale, it'll add both of them. It'll keep position in there and then add scale. So all I did was hold down the S key. So if I also wanted opacity, I could hold down the shift key and hit T. Or if I want to lose opacity, I hit T again, but holding down that shift key will add or subtract whichever property you select with the shortcut key. This just helps keep your work area clean. All right, so I'm going to bring these two up, and I'm going to hold down Shift just so I can speed up getting that footage off. And then, you know, I shouldn't have done that at first. Let me scale this down. Let's just set it at 50%. We'll set that scale at 50%, and then we'll go ahead and get this off the side here. So I'm going to start there with my animation. So I'm going to set these two keyframes, these first two keyframes, and let's see how a second does. We'll jump a second into the timeline, and then let's go ahead and scale up to 100%, and then get this back into center here. So that should be 640. Get it right there, and we have our first animation. Let's just see how that looks real quick. All right, and we'll do some ease on that in just a minute. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about trying to time this out right now. We might can go back in a few minutes and work on the timing. We really want this shot to stay into there. You know, we'll work on the timing in a little bit. For right now, I'm just going to let this shot stay up for 2 seconds, and basically going to kind of set. There are keyframes that are called hold keyframes, but I'm not going to set hold keyframes like right now. But what I am going to do is hold this position. So we want this position to stay for 2 seconds. So basically, these two keyframes are the same as these two keyframes. And now we'll animate this out. And the way we're going to do that is let's go ahead and scale down to 50% and move that on out to the right side. And so now we have that first clip animated. It comes in, holds for 2 seconds, and then it animates out. Now let's build our next two displays, video displays. The way we're going to do this is we're going to duplicate the one we've already built. And just trying to organize my project panel here. So I have the volleyball pre-comp right here. And I'm going to duplicate it once. You can duplicate anything up in here. And I'm going to duplicate this volleyball pre-comp. And the way I do that is select it and then Command D. And so now I have volleyball pre-comp 1 and volleyball pre-comp 2. Let's double click this and open it up. And there's volleyball pre-comp 2 and there's volleyball pre-comp. They're the same thing. The reason I've duplicated this is so that I don't do a lot of my work over. I'm going to just duplicate this one and change out a couple of things. Very simple. The first thing I want to change out is my footage down here. And this is a simple process. It's going to involve a couple of shortcut keys. We're going to hold down a combination of keys when we do this, but make sure that this video footage is selected. And what I want to do is I'm going to use this basketball footage. We'll bring it in next. And when I click on this, I'm going to start dragging it down. And then I'm going to hold down the Command and Alt key. And if you'll notice, it's allowing me to drop this footage over it. And when I let go, it replaces the volleyball footage with the basketball footage. So all I did was make sure that the layer was selected, clicked on the basketball footage, started dragging it down, and then I held down the Command Alt key and I dropped it right there. And that way it allows me to replace this footage with new footage. And you can see here now I have the basketball footage in there. Of course, our text, as you can tell, needs to be changed. That animation's already been created, so all we have to do is double click on the word volleyball right here in the timeline. That highlights the word volleyball, and we just type in basketball. So we're updating this video display. Now, the thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to keep our composition, this volleyball pre-comp 2, named as this. So to change this out, this is very simple also. Go to Composition, Composition Settings, and let's just rename this to basketball and hit OK. All right, so now we know this is our basketball display. And I'm just going to close these two compositions out. That brings us back to our composition that we've been working in. And again, to speed up our work so that we don't have to recreate this animation that we've built already, I'm going to duplicate this volleyball pre-comp, Command D, and you'll see we have another instance of it. And just like we used that shortcut combination, change out the volleyball footage with the basketball footage, we're going to change out this volleyball pre-comp with the basketball pre-comp. So to do that, make sure that the volleyball pre-comp is selected. Click on your basketball pre-comp, start dragging it down, and then hold Command Option. Get in there and just let go, and now it's in. Now, because we have this timed out the same, it's going to be sitting on top of and animating at the same time as our volleyball pre-comp. So if I shut that off, you can see that the volleyball pre-comp is underneath there, and that's not what we want. But it's very easy to delay this animation. Let me grab my selection tool here so I don't start clicking in and adding text. All we need to do is click on the basketball layer and drag it back. And really probably need to come about here to 3 seconds and drag that basketball pre-comp to about right there. And what is going to happen is that basketball composition is going to start right there. That basketball animation is going to start right there. So let's go back and take a look at this and see how it works. All right, that looks nice. And that's what I want. All right, so pretty easy, and we've learned some new techniques here as how to speed up our workflow. And so now this third video display is going to be fairly easy to add in there using the same techniques. So let's go ahead and do that. So the next thing we need to do is let's just go ahead and duplicate the volleyball pre-comp one more time. Come up here to our project panel, select the volleyball pre-comp, Command D, so we have volleyball pre-comp 2. We want to go inside of that composition now and make some adjustments, so let's double click on it. And so now we are inside of the volleyball pre-comp, and notice that it's the pre-comp 2 and not the original pre-comp. We don't want that one. If we start making adjustments in there, then we're going to mess things up. But we have selected, double-clicked, opened up volleyball pre-comp 2. Here it is. Let's make our adjustments again. We want to switch out the video footage. So select the volleyball footage. And let's get this MVI 0839. Click on it, start dragging down, and then hold down your Command Option key. Drop it on top. And now we have our soccer footage in there. So we have our soccer footage, and that's working. And so, of course, now we need to change our text to soccer. And so we double click on the volleyball, and let's type in soccer. And now we have that set up and ready to go. And the last thing we need to do is change the name of this composition to soccer so that we can keep it separate and know which one it is. To do that, let's make sure it's selected. Go to Composition, Composition Settings, and type in soccer. Enter that, and we're good to go. So now we can go back to, close that out, go back to our Comp 1, our main comp, and let's duplicate the basketball footage, Command D, and let's exchange it with the soccer just the way we've done in the past. Duplicate the basketball composition, and now let's swap it out with the soccer composition. like we've done before. Make sure your basketball is selected there. Click on the soccer composition, drag it down, hit Command Option, and drop it right on top. And there you have it. Now, of course, when we scrub through, we're going to see the soccer footage on top, so we need to adjust for the timing. And let's drag into about 6 seconds. And let's pull this soccer footage back to about right there. And now our composition should be ready to go. So we can go back to the beginning, hit play, let it render out. Okay, and if we need to turn the audio off, here are our audio icons. We can turn those off. And let's play through this again. Volleyball, basketball, soccer. All right, and that should go on out. Okay, and that will just keep looping. All right, so now if we need to, if we want to, what we can do is we can go back and make some adjustments. Remember that we'll talk about action here. What happens is before we get this big hit, the composition starts to exit out, and we don't want that. So the volleyball footage comes in and hits, stops right here at 1 second, and we have 2 seconds. So probably about right here at the 2 second mark, we want that big hit to happen. We want the play to happen. We can actually drag it over here to about 2.5 seconds. That'll give us enough time. I think that'll look really good. All right, so to adjust this footage right here, what we need to do is double click on our volleyball pre-comp. We're going to go in there, and if you'll notice, our timeline indicator stayed where we set it. So our timeline indicator right here is set at 2 seconds and about 11 frames. And we go into the volleyball pre-comp, and it's at 2 seconds and 11 frames. This is real helpful because this lets us know where we want this action to hit. And now we can go to the volleyball footage right here, and we can start dragging and scrubbing it until we see the big hit. All right, so let's say about right. Yeah, about right there. That'll work. And if we were timing this out to music also, this is a way that we could time it out. But right there will work really well. So let's go back to the main comp, and let's see how that looks now. She comes up, boom, and then it goes out. So now we can time out all of the footage so that we have the big play where we want it. And so I'll go into now the basketball footage. So the basketball footage comes up here. It stops at 4 seconds. So somewhere a little after 5 seconds, we want the basket to be made. And so all I've got to do is set my timeline indicator right here. We're at about 5 seconds, 8 frames. And now double click on my basketball composition. It opens up. And where this timeline indicator is, now it's not at the same 5 seconds and 8 frames, but it will match up when we go back into the main comp. So this is the point where I want the basket to be made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this footage and I'm going to start scrolling through. And I know this comes up here in just a minute. It looks like we're going to run out of footage. So I'm going to have to expand this footage a little bit. And there we go. I know that's the shot right there. And it kind of wobbles its way in. And so let's make sure that footage is stretched on out. And that's about where we want it to hit. So now that we've set that point, let's go back into the main comp and see how that looks. Okay. Now we kind of missed the shot, and the soccer shot's almost where we want it. Let's go back and see if we can adjust the basketball. Let me look at this one more time. Yeah, we need to adjust that basketball. Let's see. We're probably going to set it a little bit further back because that is such a slow moving goal there that double click that and drag this. What I'm trying to do is give more time for us to see him actually make the shot there. Let's see how this looks now. Drag through. All right. The timing on this one's not working out great, but that works. We'll go with that for right now. And then now let's look at our soccer. She's already kicked it. Let's see. Let's see if we can adjust that one so that we actually get her kicking that ball. So we'll go to the soccer, double click on it, open it up. This is where we want our action to happen. So let's in the beginning of that. So I'm real concerned about that. We'll see if that's going to work or not. Go back to the main comp. Hopefully we have enough space. Yep, that's what I was afraid of. See how the footage is not there. So we're going to need to back that up. Let me go to the beginning of this composition and go into the soccer composition. We're just going to have to let that be. So that's just what we're going to have to go with on this. All right, so we see how now we can adjust these pre-comps after we've created them, after we've put them into another composition. We can go back and make adjustments to them so that they work more for our advantage.